Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with books that are going to absolutely destroy you. So these are books that I still think about in my devastating emotional reaction to them. Almost all of these I cried in. Yeah, I would say almost all of these I cried in, and it takes a lot for me to cry in a book. I am not typically like a really emotional person. I don't cry a lot, and so if I read a book that destroys me, I'm like, I can't read another one of these for like at least a month. And so that's why I always put off like really devastating emotional series, because I'm like, I don't like feeling emotions. So I don't want to feel this when I read. And one of those authors is the first one I'm going to talk about. This is actually the only non-romance on this list, and the ones that really destroy me the most are books that just hit you out of nowhere. You're reading them and you're like, wow, this is really hard and this is really sad to read about. And then as soon as you finish, you're just like, what did I just read? And then you're just like hit with so many emotions from reading that. And usually it's something that I find very unfair. So I'm someone who, all the personality tests tell me is that I like rules, and I like it when people follow the rules, and it really bothers me when people don't follow rules. So in these books, I don't like it when things aren't fair, and I'm just like, the world sucks, people are horrible. In this specific case, I thought it was hilarious. I did a vlog reading this book, and I said literally men are trash, and someone got mad in the comments, said like, no they're not, and I was like, read this book and tell me otherwise. So that is going to be The Women, if you haven't figured it out yet, by Kristen Hanna. And I will say I read both The Women and The Nightingale, and I think both of them equally will devastate you in different ways. And so The Women I was very curious about, because I don't read a lot of historical fiction, and I typically read World War II historical fiction because that's what's really popular, that's what I've seen around, that's what I pick up, that's what The Nightingale is, and that just punched me in the gut because of something that is pretty typical of that. Like, I know a lot about World War II and like growing up and all that stuff. And so this one is about the Vietnam War, which I don't know a lot about, I will say. I feel like we really hit hard World War I and World War II in school, and we don't really learn a lot about the Vietnam War. And it was a complicated war, right? And this really hit head on what it was like fighting in that war, specifically as a woman. So the heroine in here is a combat nurse. So she is in nursing school, she wants to be a nurse, and her brother has to go to Vietnam, and she loves her brother, she's super close to him. Her family really values everybody in their family who has served their country, and so she's like, I'm gonna do the same thing, I want to go be with my brother. So she signs up, and her parents are livid, they're devastated, and she's like, but we have like a wall of all of our like people who have served, like this is what our family does. And they're like, no, that's what the men do. And so immediately she's like, what did I just do? She goes and she ends up being thrown into being a combat nurse, and it's devastating what she sees. And not most of this book doesn't even take place during the war or like with her active in the war. We get a lot of that, and it flew by. Like, this is so vivid. I felt like I was reading a nonfiction book. But what this book deals heavily with is how she's treated when she comes home, by her family, by her country, and how women in general were treated who fought in the war, because she needs help. She so obviously needs help, and no one will give it to her, even the people who are supposed to give it to her. They're like, women didn't fight in the war. Women did nothing. What are you talking about? And so this really gives women a voice who were in the war. And the ending just like obliterated me. It wasn't even anything like bad that happened in the end, but just like this sense of the world sucks, like humanity sucks, is what really hits you. And so that's why this book hit me so incredibly hard. Absolutely destroyed me. I was sobbing in bed, and I was like reading it, and I was like, I mean, this is sad, but nothing like actually like that would make me cry, because like sad things happen all the time, right? But I was just like, this is so unfair. Like, this is so unfair, and it makes me so angry. So when I get angry, I cry. And that's what happened in this book. It is so good. I feel like I did not do justice in describing this book, but if you have any hang-ups about picking this up, please pick it up. It's amazing. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way because it's the same kind of scenario where I just literally kept on telling to myself, it's not fair, this is not fair, this is so unfair, I hate people. It is Manacled by Sentlin Yu. This is a fanfic and it will be republished as something else. I forget what the new title is called. I think in 2025 it's gonna be republished, which I'm very intrigued by because this is Harry Potter fanfic. And I will disclaim this now, no money goes to J.K. Rowling from this book, nothing. They can't make any money off of it. It's free to read online. And this is one of my favorite books of all time. This is if Harry Potter, so I grew up reading the Harry Potter books. I know the characters very well. I know the stories very well. And this is as if Harry and the Order did not defeat Voldemort and the Dark Lord won. And it has the Dark Wizards like ruling the wizarding world basically. And so it's kind of Handmaid's Tale where they take these witches and make them procreate with wizarding families, specifically like ones that are close to Voldemort. So Hermione has been in captivity for a while. Hermione is then taken and placed with Draco's family, him and his wife, to procreate with Draco. And that's all I can say. Like, I can't even tell you why this book destroyed me, but it absolutely destroyed me. And it wasn't like, and I was waiting because I know people say this book is like destroy worthy. And I was waiting for something to die. Like, I was waiting for just like this big thing, but it was just the quiet culmination of everything until the end. And then you get to the last line of this book, and I have no lie, the next morning saw a TikTok with that line and literally started crying at breakfast because of that one line. It's a gut punch, and it just shows you how unfair life is. This is totally fiction and this would never happen in the real world, but like, life is unfair and I hate people. So yeah, read this if you want to never be the same again, because this book literally changed my life, and I'm just like, what are words? What is life? I don't know. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the not as heavy romances, but the next is a series that I think you all would also agree with because so many of you have read it, and that is the Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hate series. So these are really gut punching because you fall so hard for these characters, and these are character driven books. I am not a character driven person. Like, I need to like the characters, but I have to have a plot to keep me interested in a book. I've learned that. I just need a plot. I can't read about just characters. I love this series, and I'm only 3 books in because I have spread them out because I'm like, I'm gonna be destroyed by these books, because these are about characters who are actual soulmates. Like, they deserve to be together, but life tears them apart, they self-sabotage, and they just can't be together. And I love a soulmate who can't be together. Like, right person, wrong time is one of my favorite tropes. And so this is Magnolia and BJ, who are like our OG couple. They've been in love for so long. They literally, it's like a toxic relationship where they depend on each other so much, and they really need to learn how to live without each other, but they don't. And we know from the beginning that BJ betrays Magnolia, and their books are just about them trying to be together again, but self-sabotaging in 1,000,001 ways. Like, they're the only reasons they're not together, which usually bugs me so much, but these characters, and you learn things about them and their past that destroy you. And then this one is Daisy and Christian's book, and again, it's like, you two deserve to be together and you should be together, but so many things are keeping them apart. So love these books. I will read book 4 soon, and then book 5, and then be caught up and done, because they just destroy you. Then I do have one that made me so nervous I never picked up the rest of the series, because like I said, I also like love the feeling of being destroyed, and then I'm like, oh, I have to savor this for when I like really need to be destroyed, if that makes sense. So Something in the Way by Jessica Hawkins. I feel like Jessica Hawkins writes the best books. I really like her Cityscape Affair series, I think. I read one book by her and another. So I read her like Mafia series, and I read the first book of a different series, and I really liked the first one, but not the second one. The first one had cheating in it, but it was so good. And this one does have cheating in it, and it is one of my favorite tropes. I know I messed up. Is siblings significant other. I've got another one on here for that. This one, our heroine meets our hero because he's in construction by her wherever she is, and they like start up a friendship, and she's a little young though, so he's like, this can happen. He starts dating her sister, and then they go to a summer camp. Listen, I read this book like 5 years ago, and I still think about it all the time. And they have to go to a summer camp together, and something happens. That's all I can say. And the ending, you're just like, excuse me? Like, excuse me. And it just like destroys you. And I know I have to reread this before reading the rest of the series. It's 4 books and I still haven't read any of the rest of the series. This is a special edition I have all the rest special editions up there. I just can't. I can't. And like, that's what books that destroy me do. I'm just like, I just can't finish because like, I just gonna be perpetually hurt by the series. I don't need to see them have a happily ever after. I don't know why I'm like that, but very good. Love this. And then I'll just get this other one out of the way because I feel like it's very popular and a lot of people have read it. But in case you haven't read it yet, it's Another Sibling's Significant Other, and that is still beating. This one's going to destroy you. So this is another special edition. All my regular copies are always like buried, and then I have like their special editions. I have so many copies of this book. I have 1, 2, 3 special editions of this, and then the original. So people have done a lot of these special editions, but this one, if you haven't heard, made its rounds a couple years ago. All of us were reading it, obsessing over it. They're kidnapped by a serial killer. Her and her sister's boyfriend, fiance, I don't remember what they are, but she hates him and they bicker and banter a lot. It's her birthday. She gets stuck at a bar and she calls him to pick her up, and they end up being kidnapped by this notorious serial killer, and he takes people, makes them fall in love, and then murders them in front of each other. And so he is trying to make them fall in love with each other, and it's very gruesome. Like, it is disturbing. They have to do things together forcefully, and nobody ever recovers from that. But they escape the serial killer and have to go back to real life, but they're the only 2 people that know what it's like to go through what they did. And he is trying to get back and be back with his life with her sister, and it destroys you. And I definitely want to reread this again for sure one day, but it is so good. One of my favorite books of all time. It just rips you apart. So then another one that I'm actually really excited has been making the rounds. If you have been following me for a while, I read this close to when it came out. So this came out in 2016, and I read this probably like 2017, 2018. It was a long time ago that I read this. I was obsessed with this book, and it was one of my favorite books for the longest time, and I feel like it has been making the rounds again on social media, and that is Love Letter to Whiskey. This one is, I forget the tagline, but it's like, I saw him first, he saw her first or something. So basically she sees this guy as like, we're gonna be in love, and he dates her best friend, and it is like every opportunity, it's definition of right person, wrong time, where every single chance one of them's ready, the other one is not. And it goes through years of their lives where they are with other people, they're like literally about to get married to someone else, and it's just like they cannot escape each other. And that is what this romance is. I for sure need to reread this. I actually haven't even read the anniversary edition since that came out, because that one is like the novella at the end from his perspective, and I just remember literally being like, I want to throw this across the room because I'm just so fed up with these characters, but like in a good way. In a good way. So this will destroy you. You will love it. I'm obsessed with it. Another one that is a classic but a goodie, and I also read this one like 2018, 2019, but I forget that this book really destroys you, because I haven't cried in a lot of the books in this series, but Welcome to the Dark Side by Gianna Darling is age gap, motorcycle, dark romance. He's a president of the motorcycle club. She is someone whose life he saved when she was young, and she's been writing to him in prison, and now, I mean, it's their romance in the present day, and she has cancer. And her cancer comes back, and there are scenes in here that just like absolutely destroy you, because it is so found family and it really hits you. And there are deaths in here that you will never be the same after reading them. They're just so gut punching when you read this, and this is by far, I think, the most emotional book in this series. Even though I've cried in a couple of them in this series, there's 8 books now. This one I feel like, and Inked and Lies, is my absolute favorite of the series, but this one for sure will destroy you in so many different ways, and it is so good. So if you really love that found family, and that's the reason why you get destroyed, because you might lose people in that found family, or they like do everything in their ability to protect you, you're gonna love this. Okay, the last one's also one that's popular, but like it is one of the few books that I've like full out sobbed reading. And I will continue to cry in the next books in the series because of what happens in this book. And I feel like the author just created friendships so well, and that's what caused me to cry. It is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So the whole premise of this book is that Danica and Bryce are absolute best friends, and Danica dies. And so you know from the synopsis that her best friend dies. And you kind of like forget it when you start reading it, and then you're like, wait, she just died. And so she is just absolutely distraught, and it's piecing together secrets that her best friend was hiding from her, and things go from there. It's fantasy. That's really all I can tell you without spoiling it. But there are just some scenes in here where I literally, multiple times, I was just bawling, like uncontrollably sobbing. And that happened on my reread too. I was uncontrollably sobbing, and I was just like, what the heck? Like, and it's because of the friendships. They're just so good. Like, don't get me wrong, the romance in here, top tier. I loved it. But the friendships in here and the sacrifices they make for each other, and having to explore grief and loss of your best friend as well, just hit me. And I absolutely loved it. Oh my god, like one of the few books that made me bawl my eyes out. And it's just like, you wouldn't expect it from a fantasy romance, but here we are. And those are some recommendations for books that will absolutely destroy you. Let me know your favorite romances that have destroyed you in the comments down below. Give me ones that you think that will make me sob, and I will decide if I'm ready to read them or not. If you made it this far, leave me a motorcycle emoji. I think it's not like a real like motorcycle, it's more like a bike, but leave me the motorcycle emoji, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.